Arjan Endhoven. I'm a tax advisor and partner within BDO Accountants in the Amsterdam office, so also welcome to my hometown. And BDO, as an international organization, did a big survey among CFOs and risk managers in over 1,000 people and over 1,000 companies in major economies. And we discussed with them, what do you think are the major risks for your company? What is keeping you awake? And if we talk about asbestos these days, first instance, I think that's a technical issue to a building, to a property, to a site. And indeed, that could be seen as number 10 on the list, property damage. But all these people, they think there are other risks even more important to them. Number 1, damage to the reputation, the brand name. Economic slowdown, if there's any problem in the company or in the national economy, how can we recover? Regulatory changes, we are facing that as well. The competition, how they are acting. Can we meet the customers' obligations and customers' needs and expectations? What about business interruptions? And liability are important issues. If I compare these 10 risks and thinking about all the discussions I had yesterday evening, this morning, this afternoon, learning from other speakers, then I think talking and thinking about asbestos is hitting 8 out of 10 of these major risks seen by 1,400 CFOs. So we are really talking about an important issue here. And the upper right corner, it is only a matter of time that any risk will have a financial effect. And talking about financials, that's really our business. If we talk about the financial effects of asbestos, at first instance, of course, we concentrate on the property and the valuation of such a property. But that has accounting effects. And from accounting effects, I come to tax issues. Accounting and tax and business property, that will certainly attract the attention of your banker financing the company and taking a mortgage. And in the end of the day, we are talking about risk. Who is going to cover that? Who is going to pay? What about the insurance company? 5 financial areas. Let's have a situation and talk about the landlord. First of all, the valuation. Yeah, what kind of valuation are we talking about? A valuation report from an appraiser. Let's first think about the purpose of such a valuation. It really makes a difference if it is a valuation for a buy transaction, for a sales transaction, for the financing for the bank, or for the insurance policy. These will give different valuation reports, different language, and apart from the figures, it might sound strange to you, but as a tax advisor, the figures are not my first interest. What does the figure mean? How is it explained? And valuation reports tend to have not so much language in them, but these are important to understand the figures, to understand the case at hand. And the purpose of the valuation will give a different report. Property valuation is the outcome, but giving me a good clear sentence about the situation at hand, in fact, the property valuation report should give me clear clues about the exact situation. How is the property value as it is, including the contamination? How would it be if we solve the contamination of asbestos? What are the differences? And what is therefore the adjustments to be taken into account to the property value? And hopefully the upward adjustment if we solve the case. And talking about valuation, it's also a matter of discounting cash flows. And there we have the rent. And if the landlord cannot meet the obligations under the rental agreement to the tenant may not use the property because of the contamination, or when he has to go out for the solution of the problem, then by Dutch law at least, he can simply postpone the rental payments. There you have the cash flow. All of that leads to accounting issues. And then, is the accountant auditing the annual accounts, is he able to understand properly the whole position? The days are behind us that an accountant could simply rely on a valuation report from a real estate appraiser. It is not enough anymore. The accounting organization themselves must have proper knowledge about the situation. They must be able to tackle a valuation report from an independent appraiser. You must be able to ask very challenging questions. to even look in the situation how was the engagement done by the client to the appraiser. And also, yeah, does the accountant understand completely all the technical situation? Well, there is so little language in the valuation report, but it could affect the situation for the financials of the company. And indeed, if we are going to clean the problem, what will be the cost of it and the side effects? How is that taken into account in the provision for the financial accounts? All of that leads to effects in the annual statements. That leads to an effect to the key figures, the solvability of the company, the loan-to-value ratios, very important figures. Tax, also very interesting. We see a problem in the real estate, and one day it is discovered that we have it. In the past, there was no always a problem. We all handled the asbestos because it was a good building material, but now we think differently and we recognize it. We just saw a law legislation change in the Netherlands. By 2024, we need to replace, or have it replaced, all the roofs, including the asbestos. So we have a problem. We need to take care of it in the coming years. Does it mean that by at this certain moment, we can take into account a devaluation of all the properties for tax purposes, a big devaluation, a big cost for taxes at once, or not? Or should we depreciate that effect over a number of years? And if we are covering the problem, is it then maintenance, tax deductible cost at once, or is it not? Should we regard it as an improvement in the building, activate the cost, and then depreciate it over the lifespan? All of that is a matter for income taxes. And that is nice. If you are in a profitable situation, then you can pay income taxes, but you will certainly be in a tax payment position for local taxes, regardless of your position. And local taxes in the Netherlands, many more countries, tend to be dependent on the real estate valuation. So there too, you have to take into account the valuation reports, the technical situation. If you look to a Dutch case, Dutch municipalities appraise the real estate, but they use reference buildings. Do you really think they take into account all the technicalities of a specific building? I don't think so. And a group of my colleagues are having a good discussion with many municipalities for properties of our clients, and they're doing a good job on that. But learning the lessons of these days, I think we can even step up a big step further, taking into account the technical issues. We talked about the key figures from the accounts. It will attract the attention from your banker. Loan-to-value ratios. And the first thing the banker does, he becomes anxious. And then he is happy to increase his risk premium in the interest rate to a loan, making it difficult for a loan renewal or obtaining a new loan, unless you come up with a complete policy plan to clean up the area and substantiate an increase in the value of the property. And what about the insurance? We're talking about risk. Who's going to pay for it? Is it covered or not? In an earlier lecture this afternoon, we saw some great examples from Harry about a fire case. Fire with a roof containing asbestos is really a problem. And we had a case like this not too long ago, where an owner had to clean up the area, and he was simply thinking, well, this is my area of land, I take care of that, problem solved. Then the municipality came and said to him, also the area behind it is also contaminated, because the fire and the wind have spread all the debris. And how are you going to solve that? And the landowner simply thought, it's not my area, not my problem. The municipality cleaned it all up and sent him the invoice. They went to court and the landowner lost. And this case was now taken by a lot of insurance companies to change the policies. So mind you. And what about all the consequential damages? We are talking about indeed the cleaning, but indeed construction workers, personnel working in the sites, a fire brigade taking care of problems, a lot of things to be taken care of, and what is covered by the insurance and what not. And now about old insurance premiums versus new insurance conditions. And what about the tenant? He too has a valuation problem. He is not the owner of the site, or not the owner of the property, but he owns a business that can be interrupted by a contaminated case. When he has to leave the business or leave the site for perhaps a few days, perhaps a longer period, his business is interrupted, absolutely influencing the valuation of his company. What about his rent situation? I just talked about the situation that he might be able to postpone the rental payments. But we had a client with a site, a big industrial hall, and he was selling furniture from this hall. Good location, interested by the public, very good. And then another company came by, and that was a supermarket chain, and they offered him a lot of money to take over that location. He was having a rental contract for a good price for a long period, so the company just purchased the rental contract for him for a good premium. But what do you think this value would have been if the site would have been discovered with a contamination by asbestos? Then the value would have been gone. So even a rental contract can be traded, but then you have the clean situation. Taxes, again, also for the tenant. In the Netherlands, when the landlord makes the improvement to the building, which he is obliged to do so by the rental agreement, it's a logical thing. But is it a wise decision to do it so? For tax purposes, it might be much wiser that the tenant does it, because the landlord can depreciate the improvements, but has to face curtains in the tax law. There are limits to the tax depreciation for landlords, but it is not the case for the tenants. So it might be wiser from a financial and tax point of view to have the investments done by the tenants. That is tax planning, very nice. And also the tenant is facing the local taxes. Certainly for the industrial buildings, he's paying a premium to the local municipality for the tenant use. Also, in that case, he has to take into account all the effects of the building in the valuation and check carefully, has the municipality done that? All of that, cash flow issues, of course, to the tenant, and there again, the insurance. And we just discussed the situation of the fire. If the property would have been hired and the tenant needs to go, he is losing his business. Yeah, who is covering that? Is that a problem of the landlord? Is it his own insurance company? Is it the insurance company of the landlord? Multiple parties involved, multiple discussions can take a long period of time. And what about thinking back about these tenants' investments? We have seen so many cases where tenants were long-lasting take in a property, making investments in the property they were renting, not telling the landlord. Suppose a fire comes up or a problem comes up, then asbestos is discovered. Who is then responsible? It might be the tenant himself. But such situation is often not discussed, not often visible. Only when the problem arises in case of fire or in case the tenant leaves, then it becomes really an issue. But let's not waste a crisis. It can be an opportunity. Harry discussed correctly, there are subsidies from the national government in the Netherlands for the removal of asbestos roofs. There are also local subsidies by a lot of, not the municipalities, but by the provinces, asbestos offs and then solar panels on. Could be very interesting, but limited in time. Think also about the tax opportunities in that case and be careful on that. We can talk about provisions. If you are improving your roof, depreciated over lifetime, you know you have to do this expenditure one day. But can you take into account all these costs at a much earlier stage, taking the tax deduction now? It's worthwhile to investigate. Making improvements, investments into your property, you can qualify for investment credits and energy investment credits. I've taken a brief example from a live case with a client of ours. A building with a corrugated roof, also with asbestos, 1,000 square meters. The client replaced it with a new roof with sandwich panels. Half of it suitable for solar. The client had to take an investment report for asbestos on the roof. He had to take care, of course, of the asbestos, had it taken away and covered it. New roofing, direct roof investment, 28,000 euros. Investing in solar panels, total investment in the roof plus panels, over 70,000 euros. But you can take into account the subsidies, 4,5 euro the square meter, only for taking away the asbestos, then for the solar panel a similar ID, and then the investment credits in the tax deductions for energy investment for the isolation, energy investment for the solar panels, and also a general tax investment. Total tax benefits well over 53,000 euros times 25% of corporate income tax in the Netherlands gives a tax deduction of 13,000 euros, making the total investment only 50,000 euros, 30% of the gross investment off. You have a much better building, you save on energy because of the isolation, because of the solar, you generate your own electricity, also there is saving. So quite a good business case. a case study. Is it a problem or is it a chance? We had a case with a client owning a factory site. The building up front was the office building for the plant, and behind that a big area with a lot of old buildings and a lot of contamination in the soil, in the property, on the roofs, everywhere almost. And it became a huge discussion for the valuation and the annual accounts. How to deal with it? What is the value of the property? What is the value of the problem? What are the costs to take away the problem, and what would it increase the whole property value? And if we do such an issue, what about the personnel? How are we going to inform them? One wrong word and all of the personnel will report in ill. They might remind all the illnesses, the headaches, that put it on the business case, hey, there's asbestos, you employer did not take care of me very well, and the next day you find some lawyer letters. I was impressed by the presentation of Royal Mail, how you handle the case with the people, with your staff. I think that's a very good example for many of us. But it's all about communication, absolutely important. Have a good policy on that. If you lose business, can you still continue with the business? Think about the Schiphol example this morning. Can you continue, or do you need to postpone the production at the site to have the technical workers coming in and remove the problem? If you have to postpone, what about the clients? Can you meet up their expectations? Will they hand in a claim because you cannot deliver? Will they walk over to your competitors? And what about all your reputation? In fact, I'm back on page 1 of my presentation, the 10 business risks, all in a live case scenario. But how to solve it? Financing, Harry touched upon it, absolutely important. Subsidies are helping a little. The banks are worried about it. You come with a problem, not with a solution. So how to handle this? Think about it in a much wider scale. We always talk about real estate in the terms of value, in the terms of location. So think about the location, what is possible with the whole location. And after long discussions and involving architects and some ideas, this location of this client was a great opportunity for a total redevelopment. Take away all of the buildings and put on new real estate, in this case housing with some retail, and sell it off to an investor. In the present day markets, a great opportunity. And then the whole problem was no issue anymore. Banks were happy to finance it, and everybody was happy in the end. So, thank you for this brief presentation and for your attention. Thank you very much.